The meeting location open to the public stated on the agenda. There is a courtesy virtual meeting option that allows the public to participate remotely, including viewing the meeting virtually and providing remote oral testimony. For all board members, be sure to state your title and name before speaking so members of the public know which board member is speaking. We will now accept public testimony on committee agenda items. Individuals wishing to testify remotely or in person must sign up using the online form. If you signed up to testify remotely, you must be logged on to WebEx using the same name you used on the testimony sign-up form. Board staff will unmute your mic when it is your turn to testify. Please test your speakers and microphone before your name is called to ensure that they're working. Instructions on how to do so can be found on the board's website. If you are not audible because of technical issues, you'll be muted and the next testifier will be called. If you signed up to testify in person, please approach the podium when your name is called. Board staff will call on testifiers by agenda item now. We will also call on testifiers before discussion items, but an individual may testify on an agenda item only once. When it is your turn to testify, state your name, organization if applicable, and agenda item you're testifying on. Testifiers will have a 4-minute time limit. A chime will sound when you have 30 seconds left, and a buzzer will sound when your testimony time expires. You will be automatically muted once your allotted time for testimony expires. Testifiers are not allowed to yield their time to other testifiers, and committee members have received and reviewed any written testimony submitted before the deadline. I will now ask board staff to call on any testifiers who have signed up to provide oral testimony on the agenda items.
Susan Piccola Davis, in person, agenda item 4B. I'll wait. Susan Piccola Davis, agenda item 4C.
I'll wait on all of them.
Osa Tui, agenda item 6A. In person.
I'll wait. Thank you.
Chair, that concludes our oral testimony in order. They have deferred to wait until the action item.
Okay, mahalo, Gina. So we will move on. Due to recent changes to Sunshine Law, committee members and the public were not able to access written testimony submitted after the 49-hour cutoff until I called this meeting to order. We received a few pages of testimony after cutoff and I'd like to pause for a few minutes in order to give committee members time to review written testimony. Committee members, please review the most recent written testimony through the link on the board's website. And we'll, once I kind of feel the room and we've read through it, we'll continue on. Have all our board members had the opportunity to read the testimony? Mahalo. We will now move on. Our first order of business is the approval of the September 1st, 2022 Human Resources Committee meeting minutes. May I get if there's no revisions, can I get a motion in a second to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Mahalo, Board Member Namau. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mahalo, Board Member Fallon. It has been moved by Board Member Namau and seconded by Board Member Fallon. I'm giving you all a moment to put your hands up if you want to comment on the minutes. If there are no further discussion or objections, the minutes will be approved. Seeing no objections, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Mahalo. We're now moving on to the action items on the agenda, starting with action on the State Librarian Evaluation System process and the State Librarian Priorities for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. My memorandum, which is included in the media materials, proposes a truncated State Librarian Evaluation System. The board has a heavy lift this year setting up the public education system under a new strategic plan led by the board, and State Librarian Stacey Aldrich has historically been a high performer. Therefore, a limited yet laser-focused State Librarian evaluation for this year will help the board meet its top priority while still providing oversight of the State Librarian. State Librarian Stacey Aldrich also provided proposed priorities, which are attached in my memorandum, to use in the truncated evaluation. State Librarian Aldrich is available for answering any questions about her proposed priorities. May I get a motion to approve the truncated State Librarian Evaluation System and the State Librarian Priorities for the 2022-2023 fiscal year, attached as Exhibits A and B, respectively, to my memorandum dated today?
So moved.
Mahalo. Board Member Namau.
Second.
Mahalo. Board Member Ken. Okay, we are in discussion. Do we have any Board Member Moriarty?
Thank you. I'm not a member of this committee, so thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts on the important issue. I appreciate very much the reasons for the proposed changes. I nonetheless believe that the board has a responsibility to implement and maintain strict internal control processes. The board's top priority task of developing a strategic plan and the fact that the incumbent state librarian has been a high performer do not, in my view, absolve the board from the responsibility of appropriate oversight. I won't make a motion because I'm not a member of the committee, but I might suggest one course that the committee might want to consider would be an evaluation process for this year that simplified instead of eliminated evaluation of the state librarian's adherence to professional standards. So one way to do that might be the librarian might self-evaluate on each appropriate professional standard and provide evidence to support her self-evaluation. The board, instead of coming to an agreement on a specific rating for each element of the professional standards, might simply determine whether the state librarian had or had not adhered to professional standards. So thank you for letting me offer my mana'o.
Mahalo. We really do appreciate, as an ex officio member, your mana'o and being here and taking the extra time. You know, that being said, you do bring up good points. So if other members of this committee would be so inclined to make a motion along the lines of what you're proposing, that would be great. Otherwise, there would be an opportunity for you to make that motion yourself when this action is taken up in our special meeting. Is that correct, board staff? No, not correct. You would have to be here. Yeah, what I had mentioned was if another committee member wants to make it here, that would be appropriate. If not, she could then make the motion in the special meeting. Is that correct? Yes. Yeah. So those are the options. Any board members so inclined? No? Okay, we'll move on. Any other comments or suggestions? Okay. If there's no further discussion, I believe we are ready to vote on the motion. I will now take a roll call vote. Committee members, please wait until I call on you to unmute your microphone. Board members Arakaki, Asher, and Voss are excused. So Board Member Fallon.
Aye.
Board Member Kuraya.
Aye.
Board Member Namau.
Aye.
And I do believe that I would need to cast a vote as well in order to achieve quorum. Is that correct, Board staff? No, no need. So we're good. Okay. That being said, the action has been approved. Next, we have the action on the superintendent evaluation system process and superintendent priorities for the 2022-2023 school year. My memorandum, which is included in the meeting materials, proposes a truncated superintendent evaluation system. Both Superintendent Keith Hayashi and the board have heavy lifts this year setting up the public education system under his new leadership and under a new strategic plan led by the board. Similar to what I proposed for the State Librarian evaluation system, a limited yet laser-focused superintendent evaluation will help the board and Superintendent Hayashi to meet these priorities. Board Chairperson Bruce Voss and Superintendent Hayashi also provide proposed priorities, which are attached to my memorandum, to use in a truncated evaluation. Superintendent Hayashi is available to answer any questions about his proposed priorities that the board may have. Before we discuss, can we have a motion? I'd like to take a point of clarification. Did we need to take testimonies before? It's after. On the agenda, it's after. Okay. It's either before all of them or after. Okay. Mahalo. Okay, may I get a motion to approve the truncated superintendent evaluation system attached and superintendent priorities for 2022-2023 school year as attached as exhibits A and B, respectively, to my memorandum dated today?
Board Member Lynn Fallon, I move.
Mahalo, Board Member Fallon. Any second?
Board Member Namau, second.
Mahalo, Board Member Namau. Okay, we are now open for discussion. Board Member Moretti.
Thank you for recognizing me again. Again, I think that I recognize and appreciate the reasons for the proposed changes. And like most of what I see, the one area that gives me concern is that there would be no evaluation of professional standards under this simplified process. That I stress that I have no reason to think that the superintendent is not adhering to professional standards. My concern is simply for the integrity of the process. Without a change to what's been proposed, Mr. Hayashi will in effect have been leading the state's public education system for 2.5 or 3 years before being evaluated in June 2024 with respect to his adherence to professional standards. So again, the change that I might suggest the committee consider would be to not eliminate evaluation of the superintendent's adherence to professional standards, but simply to simplify it to address the other concerns that Chair Voss has raised.
Mahalo nui, Board Member Fallon. Moriarty. I do really appreciate those comments. Any other comments or discussion from committee members? Oh, seeing none, I believe we are ready to vote on the motion. I will now take a roll call vote. Committee members, please wait until I call on you to unmute your microphone. Committee member Lynn Fallon.
Aye.
Committee member Ken Kuraya.
Aye.
And committee member Kili Namau.
Aye.
Mahalo. The motion is passed. Next, we have action on authorizing the consultation with unions regarding the updates to the Department of Education's annual plan of organization, updated as of June 30th, 2022. I would like to call on Superintendent Hayashi and Sean Bacon, Interim Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Talent Management, to provide the department's recommendation.
Good morning, Chair Bacarse and members of the committee. Sean Bacon, Interim Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Talent Management. During the February 17, 2022 Human Resources Committee meeting, the board took action to defer the approval of the department's annual plan of organization that was dated June 30, 2021, and asked the department to work with the board staff to develop an annual process that allows the board to provide input on the changes of the plan of organization. The department collaboratively worked with the board staff to develop a new process. As part of this new process, the department is seeking the board's approval to begin consultation with the Hawaii Government Employees Association, Hawaii State Teachers Association, and the United Public Workers on the updates to the plan of organization dated June 30, 2022. There are two separate processes for engaging the board and communicating the changes to the department's organization. First, the update of the plan of organization, which occurs as an annual process that is required of all state agencies. And second, a formal proposal for reorganization planned by the department, which is done only when a formal reorganization is necessary, as defined within the Governor's Administrative Directive 19-02. The plan of organization includes state offices and complex area personnel. School complexes are attached to the complex area superintendents, but school positions are not included in this document. School positions are included as part of the school's annual academic and financial plans. School level staffing is determined by each school with input from school community council and approved by its complex area superintendent. Based on the feedback from the February 17, 2022 presentation, the department added additional information to the plan of organization that describes the department's organization as a tri-level system. It's on page T-1. Some of the changes of the plan of organization to note include the following. The addition of temporary teaching positions in the Office of Curriculum and Instructional Design and the Office of Hawaiian Education, which was in response to the demand for virtual learning options. Additionally, to address increased student well-being needs, several complexes have established additional behavioral health specialists, behavioral technicians, and other related positions. If authorized, the department will begin the consult and confer process with the unions. Upon completion of the consultation, and if no significant changes are made to the annual plan of organization, the department will provide a written report of the outcome of the consultation to the Human Resources Committee chairperson. Upon authorization from the board, the department will then transmit the annual plan of organization to the governor and the State Department of Budget and Finance and post it publicly on the department's website. At its August 22nd, 2022 meeting, the board approved the creation of 2 deputy superintendent positions. The department has begun the process of reviewing the current organizational structure, which will reflect the 2 new deputy superintendents in the following June 30, 2023 plan and may be included as part of a formal reorganization. If changes are warranted, the department will present to the board a proposed reorganization prior to consultation with the unions. Thank you for your consideration. We stand by ready to answer any questions you may have regarding the updates to this annual plan of organization. Thank you.
Mahalo nui, Sean. Committee members, do we have any questions?
Board Member Lynn Fallon. Please bear with me because I'm trying to understand the distinction between.
Board Member Fowler, I apologize. Procedurally, I neglected to call for motion first, previous to discussion. So that being said, may I get a motion to authorize the department to consult with the Hawaii Government Employees Association, the Hawaii State Teachers Association, and the United Public Workers regarding the updates to the department's plan of organization, updated as of June 30th, 2022, as attached to Superintendent Hayashi's memorandum dated today, October 6, 2022, and 2, to approve the plan of organization updated as of June 30th, 2022, provided that there are no significant changes made during the consult and confer process.
So moved.
Mahalo, Board Member Correa.
Second.
Mahalo, Board Member Namau. And we will go back to Board Member Fallon. Mahalo.
Thank you, Chair Bakarsi. Assistant Superintendent Bacon, so my question really is trying to understand the relationship between your annual plan of organization and reorg. So does your annual plan of organization update for operational purposes your reorg?
It's a good question and it's confusing. So I'll try to simplify this a little bit, and maybe I'll actually give an analogy here that maybe will help make sense to this. So the annual plan of org, if you were actually to take a picture like of a Christmas tree, for example, okay, the annual plan of org, we have not trimmed the Christmas tree at all. We have not added fertilizer to make it grow. We haven't chopped the tree down and made it shorter. The tree is actually staying the same. So the annual plan of org is actually nothing has changed from last year to this year. We still have the same offices, just still same sections, same branches, all of that. What has changed and what changes on an annual basis here in my analogy is the Christmas tree has ornaments on it, okay, which are the positions. So what happens is that sometimes some of the positions get abolished due to they're no longer needed. They may get moved to a different part of the tree. Through this process, what we're describing here today is just the movement of the positions on the current plan of org. We haven't changed anything. So like, for example, we did add those additional positions for the Office of Hawaiian Education. Their organizational structure still remained the same. We just added additional teaching positions within the current structure. So through the legislative process, sometimes the legislature abolishes some of the positions. Sometimes through the legislative process, we do receive new positions. Those positions are either added or removed from the plan of organization on an annual basis. If we want to actually change the structure of it, if we want to remove any branches, if we want to add any branches, if we want, like, for example, these 2 additional deputy positions, if they're warranted and we want to move forward, we would come to the board ahead of time, describe the plan to the board, get the board's input, and then from that process, should the board approve us to move forward, we would do a consultation with the unions, come back to you folks before a final motion is done, before we could then implement the changing of the actual structure of the department.
Thank you. That was very helpful.
Okay.
So on the attachment, the exhibit or attachment, it's dated June 2022, correct?
June 30th, 2022. It's the last day of the fiscal year.
All right. And so what you're asking specifically is for authorization to consult with the unions on the attached.
That is correct.
Okay. Operationally, I think, well, previously we had approved 2 deputies, but the June 20th doesn't reflect.
So
my question is how are you operating with, because you're using kind of a different structure than what was attached? Or is that something you plan to work on in the next year and then come back to us for another request?
That is correct. So, the plan of organization is continually evolving on a day-to-day basis, based on the needs of the department. Mm-hmm. Again, the overall structure hasn't changed. So what will happen is we just took a snapshot on June 30th. The deputy positions hadn't been approved and hadn't been filled at that time. So when we come back to the board for June 30, 2023, those positions will then be on that plan at that point. But if a reorganization is warranted, at that point, what we would do is we would be coming back to the board prior to that to discuss a possible reorganization and get additional input from the board at that time.
Thank you. So the flexibility you have in the annual organizational plan is to move the bulbs around, so to speak.
That is correct. Okay. I hope that makes sense.
All right. No, thank you. Because sometimes the terms are used interchangeably. So I just was trying to get really clear on the distinctions and kind of what to anticipate in the future. I yield. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Mahalo, Board Member Fallon. I really do appreciate the question. It helps clarify for myself, and I'm sure others in the room and listening in. Any other comments, board members? Board Member Namau?
I just want to have a better understanding what warrants a reorganization. If, for example, would those two deputy positions create a reorganization if they become permanent?
So thank you for the question, Board Member Namau.
I know that sounds like, I think, and perhaps when I first got on the board and Dr. Kishimoto was the superintendent, as a brand new superintendent, I believe that she created at that time a reorganization, perhaps, where she shifted some of the AS positions around. She combined and eliminated some of the AS positions and then combined them. So I'm just wondering, was that an organizational shift or was that actually a reorganization? I don't know. I'm not familiar. I'm asking.
No, thank you for the question, Board Member Namau. So on the memo on page 4, the third paragraph down, there's a definition from the governor's administrative directive that describes what is a reorganization. And there's 3 criteria that are involved in there. So it's the creation of a new segment in the organizational structure. So if we were to add a new office or something to that, that would constitute a reorganization. If we're actually going to take a segment and maybe move it from one office to another office, that would also constitute a reorganization. So prior to us actually moving those positions or any of that, where it's going to affect working conditions, it's going to affect the functional statement of the organizational chart. Before we would even implement, we would come to you first for input and the authority to do that prior to actually implementing. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks for pointing it out. I mean, it makes it a little bit more clear, like how that comes about. And I believe that that is what happened. I believe my understanding back then is what happened when Dr. Kishimoto had come on board.
There was a few actions that did happen during the time when Dr. Kishimoto was here, even at the time when we had changed the name of the Office of Human Resources to Office of Talent Management. When those types of things changed, that was actually brought to the board for a motion to be part of that process.
Okay, thank you.
Mahalo, Board Member Namau. Other committee members, comments? No, moving on. If there's no further discussion, I think we're ready to vote on the motion. I'll now take a roll call vote. Committee members, wait until I call on you to unmute your microphone. Board Member Fallon. Board Member Correa.
Aye.
And Board Member Namau.
Aye.
Mahalo nui, the motion passed. We will now accept public testimony on committee agenda items. Individuals who already testified in an item are not permitted to testify on the same item again. Do we have any testifiers who have signed up to provide oral testimony at this time?
Yes, Chair Bakassi. Susan Piccola Davis, agenda item 4B. In person. Susan, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Gina. This is the committee action on the superintendent evaluation system process and superintendent priorities for the 2022 through 2023 school year. I'm approving this with recommendations, in my opinion, the truncated superintendent evaluation system and superintendent priorities for this coming school year, the conducting of only an end-of-the-year evaluation limited to the superintendent's priorities. This simplifies the evaluation process by removing more than half of what the board usually reviews. On priority 3, actively and intentionally engage in professional growth, I would like to recommend that you attend professional training on systems design and continual, not continuous, process improvement in order to assess his deputy superintendents, assistant superintendents, and his department's strengths and weaknesses in data analysis. a revision for priority 4, building positive and productive relationships with parents, families, and the general public. 4.2, the superintendent establishes an efficient and responsive system to intake and address complaints from families and the public received at the state office level. And then I added complex level and school level. 4.3, I changed develops to establishes. So instead of it saying the superintendent develops an efficient and responsive system, I think it's more active verb if you use the superintendent establishes an efficient and responsive system for complex area and superintendents, and it might just be, wordplay, I'm not sure. And then just see if I have anything on page 2. Nope, that's it. Thank you very much.
Susan Piccola Davis, agenda item 4C.
This is on the organization that Sean just reported on. And thank you, Sean, for adding the information that I thought was missing about the two new deputy superintendents and their functions. So I don't need to talk about that. But under the Office of Facilities and Operations, I'm going to still be testifying about the adequate ventilation and the air purification, that it's employed where adequate ventilation is not possible. I know you have my written testimony, so I'm only going to bring up several points that I think are relevant to keeping the CO2 under control. The lack of ventilation can contribute to absenteeism and poor student performance. I don't know how you could do a direct correlation, but the science is saying that the absentee rates could be possibly linked to the CO2 in the room. And the only way you can find out whether the CO2 is too high to be in the room is to have a monitor and control the ventilation.
Excuse me. Mahalo for your testimony, and we really do appreciate it. And we have seen your written testimony. However, this is for item C, and I'm trying to understand the relevance. Committee action authorizing consultation with unions regarding the annual plan of organization.
It's about the plan of organization. I'm talking just to the organization. It was an attachment to the agenda item. The organization has.
Yes, the organization. I'm trying to understand how the air quality and filtration is relative to the plan of organization.
Is it relative to the Office of Facilities and Operations to ensure that school classrooms are adequately ventilated and that air purification is employed where adequate ventilation is not possible? That's listed under the Office of Facilities and Operations, number 4.
Continue. Okay.
So I'd like that time taken off my testimony. So there are other reasons that the CO2 is not good to have inside of your body, and that is your blood becomes saturated with too much CO2 and you develop the condition known as hypercapnia. It can also affect the pH level of your blood, turning it more acidic. Why is breathing too much of it bad for you? When there's insufficient oxygen to breathe, symptoms such as fast breathing, high heart rate, clumsiness, emotional upheavals, and exhaustion might occur. As the oxygen level drops, nausea and vomiting, collapse, convulsions, coma, and death may ensue. The reason I am talking about this is because the monitors that these schools have gotten, there isn't one for each classroom. It could be used in math, collecting data. It could be used in science to understand different parts of science as to carbon dioxide control in the.
Thank you.
Osa Tui, President, Hawaii State Teachers Association. Agenda item 6A. Osa?
Hello, Maikaku. I'm Osa Tui, speaking for the first time in person since the pandemic as the president of the Hawaii State Teachers Association. So nice to see so many new faces on the board. Congratulations. Chair Bokarsi, members of the committee. It's been a long haul, it's been a long road. You may or may not remember we started this in January of 2020. Things went crazy. The whole world went crazy. But here we are. We're finally coming to a resolution of this, to the end of this, and we have great, it's great news. We're so thankful to the Board of Education, leadership in the Department of Education, the Charter School Commission, our legislators who set aside this money from the House and the Senate, and the governor who authorized the funding of this, and to all of our educators and to all of the allies that we have to get this done. Notwithstanding the testimony that you received from HGEA, I will say that if they were to hustle and get a pot of money and bring it to you and say, here's some money that's been set aside, we'd be all for it, because we know that also our secretaries in the classrooms, our principals, we're all deserving. But we're here. We have this pot of money, and we appreciate that you're looking at making it a reality. To have so many of our teachers saying, you know what, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to be here for our keiki for many more years because of this, that I feel valued, that I feel respected. Finally, we haven't had that for so long. So I just want to say thank you so much. I will note that we do have about 400 or so of our teachers at the top of the pay scale who are not quite feeling that respect, who are sticking around even if with their 30-something plus years of service. And if there's any way that we could do something for them, that would be greatly appreciated. But again, mahalo for everything. Mahalo to all of you. Thank you.
Mahalo nui.
Chair Bokarsi, that concludes testimony for this agenda.
Mahalo, Gina. As our final order of business, the department will provide a presentation on its plan to address teacher salary equity and compression. I would like to again call upon Superintendent Hayashi and Interim Assistant Superintendent Bacon to provide the department's presentation.
Sorry about that. Good morning, Chair Bokarsi and members of the committee. Keith Hayashi, Superintendent. The department is presenting its plan to implement pay adjustments to address teacher salary equity and compression. Lawmakers and the governor included funding for this proposal in the state's 2022 budget bill and delegated implementation to the department. About 3 years ago, at its December 5th, 2019 special meeting, the board approved shortage differentials for teachers that took effect January 7, 2020. At this same meeting, the department shared its intention to address equity and compression in teacher salaries via a forthcoming pilot project. The department presented its pilot project proposal to the board's February 2020 Human Resources Committee meeting. Shortly after the proposal was presented, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. Due to the uncertainty of the economy of the state, funding was not available to address compression. Since then, the state's economy has rebounded. Earlier this year, during the 2022 legislative session, the issue of teacher compression reemerged in Senate Bill 2819. At the conclusion of the legislative session, financial resources to address the issue of teacher salary equity and compression was provided through Act 248, the state budget. With Governor Ige's support, the measure appropriating funds to address a multitude of initiatives at the department for teachers, including compression, professional development, and shortage differentials, was signed. In addition, both the Office of Collective Bargaining under the State Department of Human Resources Development and the State Department of Budget and Finance have been consulted on this implementation plan. The plan provides employer-initiated pay adjustments based on years of service for Bargaining Unit 5. Teacher salary compression is the result of past years where no step movements were negotiated. Without these step movements, veteran teachers did not receive salary increases to compensate for nor acknowledge the years of service in the classroom. New teachers enter the department earning nearly the same salary as some veteran teachers. This one-time employer-initiated salary adjustment will affect roughly 9,200 teachers, or about 72% of our teachers. Every 2 years of service in the department will equate to a step increase on the salary schedule. The effective teachers will receive increases from 1 step up to 6 steps, resulting in an annual increase ranging from 10-month teachers on the lowest salary range, moving 1 step, would get an annual increase of $1,524.96. 12-month teachers on the highest salary range, moving 5 steps, would get an annual increase of $18,056.88. The department has consulted with the HSTA pursuant to HRS 89-9. The HSTA is in agreement with the salary adjustments and concurs that modifications of the current collective bargaining agreement are not needed to implement the adjustments. The department projects the cost for the proposed compensation technical adjustments will be approximately $55 million. Funding for these increases is included in the state budget passed during the 2022 legislative session and is expected to remain in the department's base budget on a recurring basis. The department will assess its ability to retain teachers by utilizing metrics shared at a recent strategic plan data workshop relating to teacher positions filled and teacher retention rates. After this board meeting, the department will begin the process to effectuate payments. It is anticipated that teachers will begin seeing the adjustments in their November 18, 2022 paycheck. We welcome your feedback and stand by ready to answer any questions you may have regarding the department's plan to address teacher salary equity and compression. Thank you.
Mahalo nui, Superintendent. Committee members, do we have any questions, comments? Board Member Fowler?
You said we're not required. At what point would it trigger a need for contract negotiation? Or is this just an area that doesn't require negotiation? I'm thinking about the longevity, sustainability issue and going forward. And so that's one part of this question. I was a teacher for many years. And there are reasons why I left that profession. So I really I hope I understand the challenges of teaching. And the National Association of State School Boards has been focusing on this area. And we're going to go to a conference in about a couple of weeks about this. And part of their webinars have been around taking a step back and looking at the teaching profession overall and ways to strengthen and bolster it, either through the lens of equity or specific strategy like compression. But I'm wondering, this being one part of, kind of looking at the teaching profession, are there other areas that are related that could help to bolster the teaching profession that you're looking at? And I mean, whether it's recruitment of, young adults who might be interested, and what your thoughts are on kind of looking at that more broadly. Otherwise, it's kind of like piecemeal, right? And whatever those are, going back again to contract negotiation, what would be needed, looking at it through the contract lens, that would need to be negotiated? Just from any your thoughts on kind of this broader approach and plan to bolster the teaching profession.
Thank you, Board Member Fallon, for your question. So I think your first question really talked about when would negotiations have needed to occur. So really, this was a repricing issue that was that's talked about in 89.9. However, if we were to make any adjustments to the salary schedule itself, for example, that would have required us to go and have negotiations with the union at that point. I know that they had talked about also that, there's about 400 or so teachers that are at the top of the salary schedule that were not able to benefit from this compression. If we were to, for example, add an additional step on the salary schedule or whatever, that would be something that we would need to negotiate with the union at that point. But since there was no modifications to the salary schedule, no modifications to the contract here, it was mainly a funding issue, and we received the appropriate funding through the legislature. We were able to then implement this one-time cost adjustment.
So going forward, something like this could continue without a negotiation.
So the adjustments that we will be effectuating here after this board meeting that teachers will begin to start seeing on their November 18th paycheck, what it is, it's going to be a permanent movement on the salary schedule of a range that they're at right now. So if they're on step 5, for example, and they're going to take 3 steps increase, now they're on step 8, for example, that step 8 will be where they're going to be remaining here. Through negotiations, we will be beginning negotiations with the HSTA here shortly, depending on what the outcome of that is. There may be additional step increases or not, and then they would just continue to follow the collective bargaining agreement from there.
Thank you. And I invite any thoughts you have about kind of looking at a broader strategy to really, they're the foundation of our education system, teachers. So we need more teachers. We need to keep the ones we have, and this in part addresses that. But I think we're all really concerned about the continuation of the teaching as a profession, and the value of that, and the need for it, and kind of taking a more than an incremental approach.
Thank you for the question. There are several strategies that we are implementing, both within the department as well as in collaboration with other stakeholders. Within the department, the Office of Talent Management has initiated several strategies for recruitment of teachers, which includes a more robust recruitment strategy that would include perhaps individuals outside of the state who are interested in teaching to connect with teacher mentors in Hawaii that can help to share with them the value and the joyful experience of coming to Hawaii and teaching our youth. They also have other strategies that OTM has initiated. Within Hawaii, though, and with other stakeholders, we do have our Teacher Education Coordinating Committee. And the TECC is a collaboration between the University of Hawaii College of Education and the Department of Education. I think looking to build a robust system and supporting a system within our state think what's really exciting about the TECC, though, is that the partners that connect within this committee, which includes HSTA, it includes other higher education organizations within the state. It includes other stakeholders that have a vested interest in supporting teacher and teacher education. Also with strategies that the TECC employs to look at just what you're talking about, Member Fallon, is that how do we build the need for teachers as well and educators and all of those that are employed within our school system that continue to build that sense of value, because definitely it is value. It's a foundation of our democracy, and also the respect that our educational system and all of our employees really deserve in working to build and support our students. Also, education is one of the 4 areas that the state has identified as building out and looking at engaging our youth. One of the things that we do have in our high schools are teacher academies, and in those academies, we encourage individuals and students, especially those who have a heart about supporting our other students and engaging them. Those students within those teacher academies, normally in their junior or senior year, they do go out to elementary, middle, and high schools, get the experience of what it's like to be a teacher, the joys that come with it. And in some instances, our high school students find out that perhaps teaching is not for them because they were under the impression that it may have been easier than they thought it actually was, because it does take a lot of commitment to our youth. So those academies provide opportunities for our students.
Excuse me. Mahalo, I really appreciate this discussion, but I think we need to stay a little bit more focused and on track.
Okay.
Although teacher recruitment is definitely important, and I believe really that you've got over 5,000 reasons, new recruiters through this, but the focus of this presentation
Thank you.
should be kept to the teacher salary equity and compression.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair, for that reminder. I guess where this was headed for me then was kind of like the impact of this particular measure overall. So it hopefully will make more than a dent in recruitment and retention as an issue, and how you measure the success of this. And so, Chair, I was asking that because I don't know if just doing one thing will, make a significant difference. And so I appreciate and value this. I think it's good, it's positive, but I don't know in terms of impact how we're going to gauge that success. I'm not clear, but I yield. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your overview.
Mahalo nui, Board Member Fallon. To your point, I do believe that just as we have done with the differentials, that we'll be receiving information and reports from the department as this rolls out. Both solid data as well as some great anecdotal data as to how this has really improved the teaching profession. So we will be looking forward to that. Any other comments or Member Moretti?
Thank you again as a ex officio member of this committee for allowing me to speak. I think it's great news that teachers get paid, hardworking, experienced teachers get paid as other hardworking, experienced professionals get paid. So I was delighted to see this, and I saw that this would impact the salaries, as you said, of over 70% of teachers with about a $55 million salary adjustment. So that's good news. I liked what I saw in terms of we're talking about the data that you would collect to try to gauge the impact of this. I had a suggestion that you do look as well at qualitative data as well as quantitative data. That might be anecdotes, sort of basketing anecdotes, as the chair just mentioned. It might also include surveying teachers to understand better why they took or stayed in a job with DOE. Because there have been some, assumptions made as to the importance of this factor. So as we evaluate its impact, I think data from teachers as to what are the factors that make them take a job with DOD or DOE or stay in the job would be an important component. Similarly, I'm delighted when we have experienced teachers stay in Hawaii and keep teaching and keep improving and keep making life better for our students. But I would be very interested to understand the juxtapositioning between this part of a perhaps broader teacher support and professional plan and that rewards longevity and looking at performance. So one data measure that would be interesting to me would be to see mapped retention data against performance evaluation. So who stayed, or what percent of teachers who stayed and what percent of teachers who left received less than effective, effective, or highly effective ratings? Did we retain the ones we really wanted to retain by implementing this? Thank you.
Mahalo, Board Member Moriarty. Any other comments? Questions? Okay. Okay, seeing none, and since there's no further business on this agenda, this meeting is adjourned as of 11:16. Mahalo.